What is up, fam? We are live on a2dradio.com. Niche night, lazy booking coming at you from our own Real Talk studios. You've got Chrome. You got Maddie Sinsudi. There we go, Maddie. I had to figure out which way you were.
It's all right. I never figure it out.
I always go the opposite way.
I do it all the time.
Big show for you tonight, guys. And we're brought to you by our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal, at Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find him in Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey, or you can visit him at the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. And honestly, right now, with everything going on with COVID, they're doing things a little bit differently. So I would visit the site first and figure out how you can get in contact with them, what the process is. Again, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Also brought to you by Ambuck Services, gutter guards, gutter cleaning, tree trimming, deck installation, restoration. They do all kinds of stuff for you guys. You let them know that Tom and the family sent you from A2D Radio. You get 20% off. Again, that's ambuckservices.com. Big show for us tonight, Maddie. We always love when we get the opportunity to bring a guest onto the show. And today is no different. We're going to be, it's a little bit different than the normal type of guests that we bring on. We're going to be bringing on the Bulldozer, Matt Tremont, former CZW champion, a guy who has been labeled as the Grandslam Champion of death matches. Matt's also been, he's wrestled all over the world. He's wrestled with Atsushi Onita, who is one of the founding fathers of modern day death matches.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And, obviously Matt also was featured on Viceland, which is the same channel that you can check out, Dark Side of the Ring. We did an episode about that recently. We're probably going to do another episode and do the episodes we haven't covered yet next week or the following week. But Matt was featured on their other wrestling program that they have called The Wrestlers, to where they do different types of wrestling cultures in different places. And I think we referenced it before, Maddie, where, they had an episode about voodoo wrestling. And and obviously, people in their sexuality, gay wrestlers, the LGBTQ community in professional wrestling, just in Japan in general, so they, the indies in general, they've had a lot of really interesting episodes, and they did do a deathmatch episode that heavily featured, Matt and Onita and some of these other guys who were, kind of become synonymous with the art of the death match. So we're going to talk to Matt about that. We're going to talk to him about getting into the business. We're going to talk about his career. He also runs his own promotion, Hardcore Hustle organization, also known as H2O Wrestling. It runs out of Williamstown, New Jersey. He has his own wrestling school. I've been fortunate to do a one-day class with Matt. I've taken his clothesline, and you feel it. But he's just, he's a really fascinating, really good guy, and we're going to have him on at 7:00 to join us to just kind of do a career perspective, and we want to talk about kind of the state of indie wrestling right now, and we can kind of touch on it quick now because we have about 5 minutes before Matt joins us. It's an interesting time now. We see everything WWE and AEW is doing. They have the financial backing to do things. It's tough right now, though, for independent wrestling. And, there's, no shows is an issue. And there's been concern that is this going to be something that could really set back? I think that's almost a guarantee, or kill the independent wrestling business. So I kind of want to get your take on it, Matt, in terms of, where do you think going forward independent wrestling falls?
Well, it depends on which ones have a strong enough following and which ones have been around long enough to have a decent amount of profit in their tank. Places like ROH, obviously they're owned by Sinclair, so I don't think Sinclair would fold them, because they would make money off of them. So why would they? So they have that advantage. When it comes to other places, they either own their own facility, like Chikara owns their own facility where they do their shows, whereas basically like their training arena, they do the shows from there. So they they could weather this storm a little bit better than others, whereas others, they don't have a place that they call their own. They don't have a home base, so to speak. They're the ones that are really going to suffer because they're the ones that need to do shows in order to draw a profit. And the other issue too is that, it sucks for the boys, and the gals, who are in the industry right now, because now they can't get work, and they're not in WWE. WWE's releasing people because they have to for their own financial stability. AEW you can't go to AEW right now because they too are in the same boat, even if they have money. It's just like you can't go there because they're not doing shows except for the one. And Impact's the same thing. They're doing no audiences, but they're doing recorded shows. So the point is that it's tough for everybody, but I think the ones that'll probably weather this storm are the ones that have their own facilities. They have their own buildings. They do their shows from their own buildings. They can survive it. It's the ones that don't. They're the ones I have concern for. They're the ones that I don't think can fall back on that. And to me, that's the big concern I have for them.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just a really, really, it's a really tough time right now for independent wrestling. So, we're going to talk to Matt. We're going to see, we're going to talk about his organization, which is, it is very good. It's fun. I've been to their shows. They have a lot of really good guys there. There's been some names that have gone through there. Guy who everybody knows, Leo Rush, has gone and worked there pretty fairly recently before his WWE contract signing as well. So, I think it's going to take a while to kind of rebuild, and there's ways that you can continue to support indie wrestling right now. Pro Wrestling Tees is a big place, for your own local organizations and whatnot. Check out the websites, check out their Facebooks. There's different things that they're trying to put together so that we can help to preserve these great organizations that are local to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great because, they're the new territories. They're the places where guys and gals go to learn, to, get the experience of wrestling in front of an audience. Even if it's not a big audience, it's still an audience. It's a place for them to hone their craft and hone their skills and hone their abilities to cut promos and reinvent themselves, and if you lose that, it'll be really, really difficult to get it back, because this happened in the 90s, when there was no more territories. There wasn't really any independent promotions. The only place you could hope to get any work was Smoky Mountain for a short period before that closed down, ECW during the 90s, so that way you could get an impression on WCW or ECW. If not, then your only hope was to go to Japan or Mexico at that point in time. That was it.
Yeah, and Matt's worked all over the world. I mean, I've seen he's worked with our boy New Jack, who we were recently having conversations about. I'm going to be, there's a lot of little intriguing things that we definitely want to check in with. And we're really looking forward to talking to him about that. And also on tap, obviously we're going to try to cover a couple of things this week. Also shout out to our guys behind the scenes, Mr. Ryan Brodo, Mr. Frank Vespi, for helping to produce this show and keep this show, running while we all go through this pandemic together.
True. And also, besides Frank getting us to go live, which we appreciate, give a shout out. Don't know if Frank had anything to do with the new backgrounds, but or Brodo, either one. Thank you very much, because the background looks awesome.
Why, thank you. Well, we kind of worked on one of the other Philly sports backgrounds, but Ryan, he did the wrestling one and the hockey one.
Nice. Well, thank you, Brodo. They look awesome.
Listen, man, new look. We're trying to, we're keeping it fresh with A2D here, and that's what I love to hear.
Hell yeah.
So aside from that, we're gonna have Matt in a few minutes. But Matty, what's up with you, brother? What's going on?
Not much, man. I mean, I've just been.
How are you holding up through all this?
I mean, because I'm still going physically to work. It's not like I'm shuttered into the point where it's just like I'm going stir crazy. It's just like after I go to work, I'm like, okay, I think I've had enough social interaction for the week. And when I come home and I'm just like, okay, good, I can relax for a moment and just play games. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. Been playing Star Wars Jedi Academy since it was available on the PlayStation. Those were originally only PC, so I never got a chance to play them. So really awesome. But
nice. Mark Angel, I just saw he popped in here too. He said, "What's up, Matt?" Mark was actually our very first Lazy Booking podcast interview, and I would love to actually have him back on to do our show sometime. Maybe once we get everything kind of back and rolling and Mark gets in the ring. Mark's also, like I said earlier, Mark was one of the other guys who gave me that one-day training with Mr. Tremont. He did kick me in the face. Mark, don't think I forgot about that. He gave me a super kick to the face. But yeah, he's a good guy. I'd like to have him back on the show as well and kind of circle back and redo our interview that we had a few years ago.
That'd be fun.
But yeah, what's some of the things that you want to ask Matt about?
Just about what it's like being in CZW, like literally being in that company as a wrestler. I know we did the interview with Nick Papagiorgio, the referee, I think it was last year with Mataraki.
It was about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Geez, time flew. But anyway, we interviewed him with Mataraki, and, that was really cool. We got to, talk a lot to him about what CZW is like and everything like that. Oh, and we have Mr. Tremont here. Hey, what's going on?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good, Matt. Right. Thanks for joining us, brother. We appreciate you.
Nah, no problem at all. Thank you for having me on. This is the first time I've done any sort of video podcast or anything, so
you were telling me, yeah. I felt bad because I had talked to Matt previously when we were in the studio, and that's when we were doing a lot of the phone stuff. And because obviously the way things are now, everything's got to be video with the way we do it. So, but we got it working today. We worked through it, and we're happy to have you on, brother. We appreciate you.
No problem at all. Appreciate you guys having me on, man.
Nice.
Yeah, Matt. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I can see that they got the ring back there. That's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I am at the H2O Wrestling Center. Since we've been shut down, I come here as much as I can just to clear my head, and it's a quiet, big, empty space, and I got my makeshift office going on. So yeah, it's a cold, lonely building, very quiet with no wrestling. I haven't even gone in the ring to even take a bump. Because I know it's not going to happen anytime soon, so I don't want to get myself all excited. So yeah, man, I'm here.
Man, and it's a fun facility. I've been fortunate enough. He let us hop in the ring. I was telling Maddie earlier, you let us hop in the ring, and I took one of your clotheslines. Definitely felt that for a little bit. But Matt, we want to, we want to thank you for joining us. Obviously, we have the Bulldozer, Matt Tremont, one of the locally one of the most beloved wrestlers, and not even just beyond that. Matt, you've done so many really awesome things, with your work in CZW, obviously in the world of deathmatch. You've worked all over the world with guys like Onita, and we're definitely going to ask you about that experience. But we kind of want to get first and foremost into kind of your early days of like training for wrestling and kind of some of your inspirations that made you want to step into the ring. So can you kind of tell us about, what made you kind of want to pursue this and what your training process was kind of like?
For sure. Like many, I started, doing the backyard wrestling as a teenager in my sister's backyard, in my mother's backyard, and anywhere I could where we could, I guess, legally get away with things and not get in trouble. That was 14, 15, 16 years old. And then I got to the point where I'm like, all right, this has run its course and I want to do this for real. And this was still in the days of MySpace, and our backyard fed was known as EZW, and we had a MySpace page, and someone that was in the business reached out to us, saw we were doing these local backyard shows in the Mays Landing area of Jersey, and he hit us up and he was like, hey, I'll come out to your backyard shows and film your guys' shows for free. And I'm like, cool. We didn't have any equipment or anything like that. This dude's name was AV because he was like, an audio video guy. So that was his nickname, AV. And his tie to the wrestling business was a group of guys under the banner called AWFR, America's Wrestling Fundraisers, run by DC Laurie and Stephen Morgan and a few other guys. Once I was able to meet him, he introduced me to those guys. They had a ring. It was a traveling ring, came up very old school. Like every other week, the ring was in a different place where we went to train. So one week, the ring was in Woodbury Heights, New Jersey. The next week, we had to meet them inside this very, shady structure in Northeast Philly on B Street. But they were good dudes. They were able to help me get my foot in the door in late 2006, early 2007, and I trained for just a few weeks until I had my first match. I really learned on the fly, and as I went, I came up, kind of that last, I guess, generation of like maybe the old school training where I was learning as I was going. My first match was January 27, 2007, and I had a few weeks training under my belt.
Wow. So who inspired? So let me ask. I mean, obviously you've become synonymous with deathmatch wrestling. Was that something you kind of saw yourself pursuing early? I know that some of your influences are Terry Funk and obviously Onita, who you had the opportunity to work with. Was that something that you kind of saw yourself getting into early, or was it something that you kind of just had a match or two and kind of found yourself falling into it and doing it more and more?
I probably started watching wrestling around. I didn't start watching wrestling until I was like maybe 9 or 10, and I was real big. I was heavy in the more regular sports before I got into wrestling. And the first wrestling I ever saw was WrestleMania 5 on a VHS tape. And so then I would come familiar with, WWF, WCW, ECW. And then I came across independent wrestling, and, I wound up going to the Berlin Flea Market, getting a bunch of VHS tapes I bought. And one of the VHS tapes in that box was the 1995 IWA Japan King of the Death Matches. So I'm like, I'm an early teen, and I'm introduced to this violent craziness. And once I watched that tape, I was hooked. Then I would find out about CZW and learn about, history and those who, came before me in previous eras. And I was hooked on the genre. Once I got into the business, I knew, I didn't have my first hardcore match until about 3-4 years into the business. Once I got in, I wanted to, hone my skills, become the best worker I can, and just have regular wrestling matches. When I tell people that, they're usually like, "Oh, you haven't done hardcore since, from the beginning." I was just working local, South Jersey, PA, Delaware, small promotions when I first started, and just waiting for the opportunity to get a booking to do, a hardcore match. And I would say the late 2010, early 2011, I got a booking for what was at the time NWA or IWA Vintage Pro, and I wrestled a guy from CZW named Wax, and he was in Franklinville, New Jersey at a skating rink. And, that was my first, real hardcore match. I had a few lighter hardcore matches before that, but that was my first real one. But yeah, I wrestled, 3-4 years prior and didn't do any kind of violence, till then. But I knew early on that was the genre that caught my eye, and it's what I wanted to do. Like you said, main influences are, Terry Funk, Onita, Kevin Sullivan, Mick Foley, Bruiser Brody, Abdul the Butcher. I saw Terry Funk versus Abby live. Well, I would think I was 13 in like the early 2000s at the Burlington Fire Hall in Burlington, New Jersey. So I was 13 years old seeing Terry Funk versus Abdul the Butcher, and that just made me even more hooked from that point on.
Nice. During the time period that you got started, did you get the nickname Bulldozer from one of the trainers? Did you get it from somebody in the business, or did you give yourself that one to kind of market yourself? Like, where did the nickname Bulldozer come from?
When I started, my first backyard name was Matt Awesome. And then from Matt, I was a big Mike Awesome fan. And then from Matt Awesome, I became Matt Justice. And I had no idea there was actually another Matt Justice in the business at the time. My first couple years in the business, I was Matt Justice. 2010, I would make my way to DWF, Devastation Wrestling Federation in Pennsauken, New Jersey, run by Doc Diamond. He took it over. It was originally King Kong Bundy's old place. He took it over from Bundy. I just moved back to South Jersey, and I got my feet back in the door at DWF, and they were going to put me. They didn't know I could talk or anything yet, and even at that point, I didn't know I could either. You know, I was still green. So they're like, Matt, we're going to put you with this manager. His name is Jeffrey Kane, also known as Loudy. Never met the guy in my life. And they put us together. They were putting me in this faction. I forget the name of the faction. And our first meeting ever, he literally, he looks me up and down. And he's like, what's your name? I'm like, Matt Justice. And he's like, that sucks. I'm like, and he's like, what's your real name? I'm like, Matt Tremont. And then he, just kept looking me up and down. I had, very similar gimmick, bandana, jeans, cut off flannel at the time. And he was like, you look like a bulldozer. And that was really it. So from that point on, from 2010, when I first met Jeffrey Kane, I've been the Bulldozer Matt Tremont since.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty great nickname, too. So when you kind of, those first couple years in the business, you said it took a couple years to kind of get into the hardcore wrestling. So I have to ask this question. You've obviously had a lot of years in hardcore and the deathmatch stuff. How long, they say that your body kind of calluses to certain things over time. You kind of get adjusted to it. When you first really physically started doing it, how long did it really take you to kind of get adjusted to this being almost like a regular thing for you?
It definitely took some time. I remember my first real big balls to the wall crazy death match was against Danny Havoc in the middle of nowhere in Coleman, Alabama, for a IWA Deep South Carnage Cup death match tournament. This was my first time using fluorescent light tubes and just really getting hot and heavy into this. And I did 2 matches that day, and I just remember, the 18-hour ride home in a van with 10 other wrestlers, driving back home, sitting in the van and feeling pretty beat up. Definitely, something I wasn't, mentally I knew what I was getting myself into, but I'm like, man, this is something different. Like you said, over time, the body's definitely kind of used to it now. I mean, after almost 14 years in the business now and taking a lot of crazy bumps over the years, only being 31, I've been doing it half my life, pretty beat up. And it's definitely taken its toll at times. 2018, I slowed down and cut my bookings in half that year just so I could kind of rest up a little bit and, so I could, go back full time the year after. But it's definitely taken its toll. It takes a physical toll and a mental toll because there's days, it definitely takes a few days to kind of recover and get back going. There's been many times I've done countless deathmatch tournaments, and most of the tournaments I've been in over the years, I went to the finals in all of them. So that would consist of 3 and 4 rounds, 3 and 4 matches in one day or 2 days time. So, there many of times over the years, I would get home from a shot during the weekend, and I'd get home and just pass out and literally couldn't get up in the morning, and the wife has got to pull me out of bed in the morning sometimes. So yeah, definitely has taken its toll over the years. My hip goes in and out. The wife's got to put my hip back into place every once in a while.
Oh, man.
I got 2 bad knees, 2 herniated discs, so it takes its toll, but I don't regret a damn thing.
Gotcha. I have
that.
to. I'm wondering, what one would be worse, like the 2-day tournaments or the 1 day where at least the adrenaline's going for the day? Would that help you get through, like you're doing 3 matches in 1 day, 4 matches in a day, or the 2-day maybe a little bit easier because you get to rest up after having a couple of matches and go in the next day for the next 2? Ooh.
Did we lose his audio?
I think we did because I can't hear him.
Matt, we can't hear you.
All right.
There we go.
Now
Got
can
you.
hear
We got you back. Yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, what was it? Back on track. The time between the I would rather do everything in one day opposed to two. You know, like you said, the adrenaline's flowing, and I'm just rocking and rolling. Opposed to all right, 2 matches. Let me get some sleep, and I got 2 more tomorrow. I'd rather bang them all out in one day.
Yeah. Let me ask, Matt, has there ever been a time or a spot or anything where you kind of thought maybe it was a little too much, or a little maybe that's going a little further than I even think it's safe to go?
I would say that there's anything that I've done that I've put myself in a situation, or any promoter has asked me to take a certain bump or do a certain spot. On the spot, if I thought it was going too far, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Everything I've done, any kind of crazy bump I've taken my own volition, and have done with a smile on my face.
Nice. Was there any like when you were doing any death matches? Was there any spot you created where you were just like, oh man, like that? I look back on that and that was a lot of fun to do, and like that was like my favorite thing to do with who I was working with.
I guess a lot of the big bumps over the years have been like the memorable ones for a lot of the fans. Me and DJ Hyde, I gave him a Death Valley driver off the top of the cage of death through 3 sheets of glass to the floor. Sick Nick Mondo came back the following year at the cage of death and gave me a Beal kick, and I just took a fall again from the top of the cage to the floor. I took a Mitch Nuko driver off the top of a tractor trailer at IWA Deep South before. So I've taken a lot of big, crazy bumps over the years. I would say those have been, the most, memorable that, people at least remember that I, have done over the years.
Gotcha.
If that answers your question.
Gotcha. Now, were those cage of death spots? Were those was that at the skate zone? So you were going off the cage of death and going down to like the roller floor that
Yes.
they. Oh man, because I remember going to the shows on CZW and just seeing the floor and just be like, oh my god, just landing on that through the glass, no matter what. Just like, oh man.
Those were some rough days at the office, but
fun. Matt, in 2015, you won the CZW title. And you held on to that for a pretty good period of time, about 13 months, a little over. Can you kind of talk about, what that moment was like? Because I know you had a lot of really interesting and good feuds in CZW going into that. I know with Masada and obviously with DJ, you had a really fun feud to where you were fired and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that moment where you were finally kind of crowned the guy that, the flag bearer for CZW, which, when you talk about independent wrestling, a lot of guys have gone through CZW. It is a very, very well-known, very prestigious independent promotion. I don't even know if I consider it independent because it's so well-known, but can you kind of talk about what that was like, winning that and just kind of being the flag bearer for a year?
I would say, first I'll say, like you mentioned, just the platform that CZW is. It's been around for 20 years. And like you said, so many guys have come into the company, used that platform at CZW, and then they would either get scooped up by Gabe at Ring of Honor or Dragon Gate, or would then go to WWE and now WWE, AEW. So the Sammy Callahans, the Adam Coles. So so many people have come through the CZW doors, got that platform to, be successful. And was fortunate to, to be one of those. And CZW was always my goal. I grew up watching CZW and going to those CZW shows. At the point in time when I won the title, I've been in CZW at that point 4 or 5 years now, and up until that point in time, that was my biggest accomplishment and still one of my top 3 biggest accomplishments in the business. For a top independent promotion to have the confidence and faith in me to put the strap on me and then to hold it for over a year and be the representation of a brand and a company that's been around for 20 years, put a lot of stock into me. And that's when you know, I was starting to make a name for myself, but really once I got the title put on me, it really started to raise my stock, not just in CZW, but all around the Indies. And when I won the belt, I was in a months long feud with Black G's, a veteran at CZW. I learned a lot from him, working with him in that program that we were building to. And I remember the phone call I got. There's a guy named Rob that was working behind the scenes at CZW at the time, and he was the one who, and then DJ. So I got back-to-back calls from both of these guys that day, from them telling me, hey, Matt, this is the direction we're going in. And when we get back to, there was the CZW Retribution show in August 2015, and they're like, hey, next weekend, we're putting the belt on you. And my wife was sitting next to me, and I told her, and she just shrugged it off. She's like, they're lying. They're working you. Like, I think they're serious this time, because there was talks before, because I wrestled G's at the arena in Philly a couple months prior, but it just wasn't the right time yet. And when it happened, to me, it was the right time. And I just remember when Papa Giorgio, counted the 1, 2, 3. I had a legit big smile on my face, and a lot of the locker room didn't know either. So guys like Danny Havoc and Greg Excellent, a lot of the veterans, that were there at the time, everyone's just coming out happy and celebrating. So that was an awesome day, and one of my fondest memories in the business and my tenure in pro wrestling thus far.
Nice. Well,
we real quick, we had Nick on the show. And he's been asking all week, are you going to put him over, or are you going to cut him down?
Papa G always wants me to shoot on people, but I'm not that type. But I just put you over, Papa G. Papa G's the man. He's a
great guy. We had him on
here. Yeah. Now about the CZW Championship. Before you got it, who was like the driving force behind you getting it? Was it somebody in the locker room who was going up to DJ, or was it DJ himself that was saying, you know what, we gotta put the belt on this guy because he's doing big things right now?
I think DJ was definitely a big part of it. The producer Rob, I forget his last name, and I feel so bad. He was a manager on the Indies. He's a close friend of Steve Corino. He was a behind-the-scenes producer at the time, but Rob was a real big component. And the third was Black G's. When you're working with somebody in an angle in a program for months and months and months, like I said, I'm learning from him. You become closer, and he saw what we were building towards, and man, the fans wanted to see it happen. And all three components of all three of those guys all each had a say in like, hey, let's put the strap on this kid.
Nice.
Matt, the couple years ago you did a little bit of a gimmick change in Father Matthew Tremont and the Awakening. Can you kind of just let us give us a little insight into kind of doing such a drastic change from the guy that we had all known, the Bulldozer. Kind of what was the idea or the inspiration behind doing that?
It's something I wanted to do for some time. They tried to turn me heel a few years prior, but it was forced, and I wasn't invested into it, and it didn't get over. Fast forward a few years later, I held the belt, won TOD, did everything at this point. And not that I say I was stale at the time, but I'm like, man, I wanted to do something different. And when I came up with the Father Matthew Tremont concept, basically it's Kevin Sullivan, 80s Florida territory, Prince of Darkness, Purple Haze, all that stuff. And after hanging with Sullivan a lot and, working with him quite a few times, I'm like, man, I really wanted to do this. And I pitched the whole idea to DJ. He fell in love with it. And, we were off to the races. The biggest thing for me, I'm like, man, like they've been cheering me. I've had the fan support since day one. To get them to boo me is the challenge that I wanted as a performer to get done and have them boo me. And once we got rocking and rolling and, we started to form the faction itself, I finally started getting booed, and we were getting over too at the same point. So I kind of felt like we were getting heat. And then the other half of the crowd, we were like the cool NWO guys, and they were cheering us as well. So the crowd was split 50-50, but I was, able to get the job done to get booed. And, there was a lot of plans overall for the Awakening, and then CZW behind the scenes, unfortunately, had a change in booking at the time. So mid 2017 or 2017, right when the Awakening we're about to take off, because the plan was for the Awakening to run roughshod, go all the way to the Cage of Death that year, take on the big baby faces. And the Awakening and Father Matthew just kind of got chop blocked at our knees, and we were told no factions. Matt, we don't want you to be heel. So everything we just built in only 4 to 5 months was done. So I never even really got to sink my teeth into being a heel and doing the Father Matthew gimmick like I wanted to. But it was in the time that we got to do it and build the stable with myself, Stockade, G Raver. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to be a heel and get booed and do something different.
I can actually. I was gonna say real quick before you go to your question, Maddie.
Okay.
I can remember being backstage. So I think I told you before I was on CZW 18 for part of the Riddle Matthew or David Starr match,
Yeah.
And I can remember being backstage in the hallway, and you were cutting a promo for the Awakening, and I just kind of was at a distance, just kind of listening to it, and man, it was absolutely gold. It was such a cool experience to kind of, as a person who's not really ever been in that environment, to hear, a professional like yourself cut such a really deep, awesome promo like that. It was, it was kind of a cool thing just to be a part or witness of.
Nice.
But go ahead.
Very cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Maddie.
I was going to say, did they ever give you a reason as to why they pulled the plug on that? Because, it sounded like you guys were gaining traction there, and, usually you roll with it if it's working. But any real reason why they ever come up to you like, hey, man, this is the reason why we're going to pull the plug on this?
Then never, and that's what probably still bugs me to this day, is I never really got a real reason why. I can only ponder in my head as to why. But yeah, it was literally, we're rocking and rolling with this stable and this group. It's working. It's getting over. Me and Joey Janela were building to a cage match, and everything was great. And then we just got chop blocked at the heels, and then this thing's done and over with. And then I went back to being the Bulldozer. They made me like the commissioner. It was a very weird 2017 for myself there.
You did get the opportunity to work with, obviously, an absolute legend in the art of the death match in Onita. Could you talk to us about, A, just in general, getting to know Onita, and B, the opportunity to work with a guy who is, very easily one of the pioneers of what's probably modern day death match specifically, a guy that you looked up to?
It's very surreal knowing that most of us that have grown up watching deathmatch wrestling and traded tapes, to get those FMW tapes and this and that, and then and be a fan of the guy, and then all these years later, being friends with Onita. Never would I thought, if I talked to myself at 13 years old, what I'm like, I've wrestled with Onita and become friends with him. It's still very surreal to this day. The whole experience, everything getting to the point to work with him. It got to the point where I accomplished, a lot of things, but my main goal was to get to Japan. And I'm like, man, how do I get to Japan? And I was at a Beyond Wrestling show in Massachusetts, and I was talking to veteran Steve Monster Mack of the Hit Squad fame, Jersey All Pro. And I'm like, man, what, just asking a veteran advice. And he was like, do what Taz did and just start calling people out. And that's what I did. And I went for the biggest dog, and I just started calling out the old man Onita. Never in a million years would I think, it would all come to fruition. But with the power of social media, is one of the positive things to come out of social media. I just kept cutting promos and just calling them out. No heat, no ill will, but just the respect was there, and I knew, how am I going to gain, the attention and the interest of Onita to come wrestle this kid he's never even heard of, and he's saw one of the promos. I guess he liked it, and then he reached out to me, and then I reached out to DJ right away, and I'm like, hey, Onita hit me up, and he's down and willing to do business. And then in the midst of all that, the original goal was for me to get to Japan. Once in a Lifetime came out of nowhere and became a whole thing on its own, because now Onita, who hasn't been in the States in many years, he wants to come here. So not only did we get him here and got him here, which a lot of people think, we weren't going to be able to pull off. I got to wrestle him here. 2 months later, got to go to Japan for the first time, wrestle him over in Japan, an explosion barbed wire crazy match. And then work with him again at Cage of Death a couple years later, at the arena a year or two ago. And then just, being able to know him in general, he couldn't have been any kinder to me. Him and his wife, me and my wife, we've gone out to dinner and just hung, it's crazy to say I've hung out with Onita. And it's I still pinch myself to this day. But he didn't have to do and go above and beyond and do all the things he did for me that he did. So I'm always, in him, he helped come true to go to Japan, for the first time in 2017. Legend that, like you said, pioneered, all this that we do today.
Matt, tell us. So I want to ask you about your future going forward, but I actually want to take a few minutes to talk about the other things that you have going on, right? So we have H2O Wrestling, which is your baby. It's a great organization. You've had a lot of guys come through there already and work some really great events. And you also have your wrestling school where you train wrestlers, referees, managers, a lot of really great stuff that you're doing with that down in Williamstown. So can you kind of just, kind of tell us about that experience? What made you want to start your own promotion to begin with, and what that experience has been like as far as, the actual promotion, the school, all that stuff.
Well, I'll rewind and try to do a quick one. 2013, that guy Jeffrey Kane that dawned me the name the Bulldozer. We both of us started OPW On Point Wrestling in 2013.
I remember that. Yeah.
He was the booker. I did everything else. I was the promoter. I handled the daily logistics of the company, the social media, all that stuff. So that gave me, a good practice tool of, what to do behind the scenes and run a wrestling company. At the same time, fast forward to about 2016, at the end of the day, I knew OPW, though we were doing it together, OPW was his baby, and I was helping him nurture his baby. But at the same time, I had my own vision, and I wanted to do my own things with On Point that I knew I wouldn't be able to ever do. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start my own promotion, and came up with H2O, the Hardcore Hustle organization. And in June of 2016, we ran our first live event at the Woodbury Heights Community Center in Woodbury Heights, New Jersey. And not even 4 years old yet, the company, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary. Like you said, it's, it really is my baby. It's my vision as far as how I book and how I present pro wrestling. And, it's, I've put in my own singles wrestling career, I've put on the back burner a lot of times to focus on the overall development and growth of the company, because the second half of my future in the business now, because as far as my career, I've accomplished pretty much everything I've ever wanted to do, aside from just a couple things now. So, I get just as excited now, when I would do my first handful of death matches 10 years ago, opposed to now where I'm booking a show and seeing those shows come to life, and the wrestlers in the locker room making all that come to life. So I get a real satisfaction of booking the product and presenting, pro wrestling in within my vision and having those guys make it come to life. And the beginnings of H2O, it was really just going to be like a side project. Hey, this is something fun to do. Let's just run a couple shows here and there. And May 2018, the ball game changed for me completely. We've run out of this building, which was originally OTW and Old Time Wrestling, run by Jim Molyneux, former ECW referee. Developed a good relationship with Jim over the years. We rented the building from him. He made his money, and then it got to the point Jim was getting older. He wanted to condense his operations down, and OTW was going to leave this building. And he called me right away. It was very late on a Monday night, and I'm like, "Why's Jim Molyneux call me at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning?" And he was like, "Hey, well, I'm going to leave the building, and the opportunity is there for you to move in." And I'm like, "Man, it was a lot to be able to turn a part-time wrestling promotion into a full-time business within a matter of weeks. Just the logistics of it, and then the finances of it. Just to move in this building when we first moved in July of 2018, first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit was well over $5,000. This building cost me about $2,000 a month, and I didn't have a pot to piss in at the time. It was like 55. Once I talked to the landlord and got established with them, I'm like, man, $5,500 is a lot. But I knew, it was something I wanted to do and I wanted to pursue, and it would take H2O to the next level, being able to move into our own facility. So I knew once we moved into our own facility, the avenues and platforms and just all the things we'd be able to do, we'd be able to generate the kind of revenue to, keep the lights on. So I pretty much sold everything I had, all the deathmatch tournament trophies I had won over the years. I sold all that stuff and was able to get the money together to move into the building. And we moved in on a Monday. Our first show was that weekend, which was our opening day event. So as soon as we moved in, we're cleaning. We're trying to get the building together. And we have our debut show opening day now under our umbrella. That is the H2O Wrestling Center at the Kevin Hogan Memorial Hall. And a month later is when Preacher Phineas James left CZW and came to H2O. And once he did that really solidified, okay, I got another veteran trainer with me, and I can open up a reputable school. So a month later, we opened the school, and we went from running 1, 2, 3 live events, every few months, to running multiple live events a month, running the school full time, renting out the building to other promotions, the birthday parties, and pay-per-view parties and all that stuff. So it became a full-time business, and I still have my store at the time too, Bulldozer's Collectibles, inside the Berlin Flea Market. So once H2O grew, I juggled both for a little bit, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to juggle both and be able to put as much time as I wanted into both. So I'm like, all right, H2O is the big vision right now, and financially, what's going to make a lot more money than the collectible business in the flea market. So I had fun doing that. But once we got established in the building, we were rocking and rolling from there, and it's a 24/7 job. I was between having to stay creative and book the product, running all the social media. So I'm promoting everything, I'm booking everything, doing all the paperwork, handling the day-to-day logistics of the company, the building itself, and then the school, it's a lot of work at times, but it's if there is an American dream, to me this was my dream. I'm my own boss, and I get to work my own hours. If I want to sleep till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can, and then wake up and then work for the rest of the day. So running H2O full time, and then on top of my wrestling schedule, on top of that, and traveling, et cetera, et cetera. I love it. And H2O now, I look at, I'm in the second half of my career and tenure in the wrestling business, and this is what's motivating me and keeping me going is this company and building this company to what I strive for it to be, and then. Overall is the H2O Wrestling Academy. We have almost 30 students enrolled, and they're my motivation to keep this thing going, build this thing up, and so these kids have a future in the business. So they have the platform to learn the tools, learn the fundamentals, and I want kids to come out of here and get signed to WWE and Ring of Honor and have a successful career on the independents. So every day I wake up, I'm bleeding green because H2O is what's motivating me to, keep doing this every day.
And
Jordan Hillier in our comments wants to say, he asks, Matt, how much input do you typically have on yours and H2O's merch? That new Funkenstein shirt is off the hook.
I would credit. I'll have a little bit of input as far as the merchandise, but man, our T-shirts and my T-shirts, Dan Cowie, who is our commentator on the DVDs for H2O, he's our play-by-play guy. He's done great. He was the CZW. He did play-by-play at CZW. He was play-by-play for Pro Wrestling Unplugged back in the day. So he's been the voice of H2O for some time now. And on top of that job, he's one of the unsung heroes at H2O because he does all our graphics and he designs all the H2O T-shirts. And then most of my T-shirts, like the one they just put out, is by Sei Ozawa in Japan. So I credit all the other great artists out there that have made me awesome shirts over the years. And as far as anything H2O, as far as like all the shirts that are on Pro Wrestling Tees, as far as H2O goes, that's all Dan Cowie. So definitely, give Dan Cowie the credit and shout out on that. Sometimes I'll give him some bullet points or like, hey, here's an idea, and then man, he makes it come to life. But a lot of times I'm like, man, you have the creative tool, do your thing, and 9 times out of 10, I'm happy with it. So yeah.
Man, I got to say too, I was on there today looking at some of the shirts. They really are fire. They are awesome. Andrew Oakley, he says, H2O, home of the first inaugural dumpster fire event. Great time. Matt's awesome. A real pro and a great dude. Our buddy Matt Milcarrick says, how does he put up with that jabroni, Mark Angel?
I have known Mark Angel for probably 10 plus years now. I think we first met at DWF in Pennsauken. And I've met a lot of guys still to this day I still talk to. So I've known Mark for a long time. We've had, at DWF, we had a loser leaves match. This is probably October 2011. I booked myself. Well, I told DWF that I wanted to do this match in Angle. And they're like, and because I just got to CZW and I didn't want to work at DWF anymore. I loved everybody there to death, but it was just time to move on. So I booked myself in a loser leaves match against Mark Angel, and had Mark, go up, and I lost, so I was able to hit the bricks and got to work there again. And we that was like the first crazy match we had. Me and Mark had a no rope barbed wire match at On Point Wrestling a few years back.
I've seen that. I saw the video of that.
That was pretty brutal. We've had quite a few matches over the years. Most recent one was at H2O, one of our undiscovered events that we had earlier this year. But yeah, man, known him a long time. Him and Jimmy Lyon will drive me nuts half the time, but I love him to death. He's one of the core roster main guys here at H2O. He's one of our top heels, and I know Mark's one of those heels and workers that I know I can plug into anything at any certain time. I know he can have a good match with just about anybody, and I know he's going to go out there and get heat for me. And that, and he does his job, well, and gets the job done, and nothing but good, nothing but good about Mark Angel.
That's funny with the booking of the angle of the loser leaves the promotion match there. Usually when you book yourself into that, it's like, hey, man, why don't we do a loser leaves? I go over so that way I don't have to worry about the other guy. That's usually how that works. But it's hilarious. That's the total opposite.
I want it out.
I actually wanted to ask you with you bring up Mark Angel, who's a guy you've worked with a lot over the years. Obviously, you just kind of went through it. I remember a few years ago also in On Point that you guys did the angle where he kind of turned on his son and he super kicked his son.
Yeah.
And his son, kind of was looking at you as a father figure. So kind of fast forward now, and his son, Marcus Mathers, is actually training with you now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And real side note real quick, Matt is absolutely right. Mark Angel has said the only two people he's ever actually kicked in the face on a super kick was me and his son, because he super kicked me at dumpster fire in the face. With that being said, how kind of surreal is that? Because you've seen his son grow up, and be around it, and he's very, very talented too.
He's good.
He's a great kid. So can you kind of talk about what that experience is like?
I think Mark Sr. will say that I think his son's going to be better than his dad. I've known little Mark since he was a baby, and so is my wife. So we've just known his whole family for a long time, and you could tell when a kid is around the business and his dad is a wrestler, it's gonna be in your blood. And when we did that angle at On Point, that was probably the one thing that I was able to do that I had a little bit of my fingertips on, and Mark. So creatively, me and Mark's whole angle, we booked that angle. Laudy gave us the freedom with that. And when he super kicked his son, and this was 3-4 years ago now, got a massive pop, and just really elevated our angle that we were doing at the time. And I knew at some point, little Mark was going to get into business. And then, we open a school, I'm running H2O, and Mark brings little Mark here. And I told him, man, if you brought little Mark here, he's good. Big Mark knows he could leave him here. His son's going to be safe, and he's going to learn things the right way, and he's going to learn the fundamentals. And my biggest thing when we're training the kids, at least I can say on my part, we're here for the development and to create the best worker that we can. But a lot of my students are young, man. So I'm here to produce wrestlers and to make a better human being as well. So and I got a lot of our students are young, so they're young, they're impressionable. They see something, they're going to do it right away. So I guess not to say, and because some of my students are older than me too, so I don't want to say like a father figure, but I really put forth put my best foot forward as far as giving these kids an outlet to chase the dream and to help. Not hold their hand, but I guess just, guide them to being a good professional wrestler, doing things the right way, and being a good human being overall. And little Mark's, he's always been a good kid. He's got all the tools. He's definitely one of the standouts of all the students, and he's been doing fantastic. And it's a matter of time. I would say at some point this year, he's going to move from the undiscovered Monday weekly student shows to being on the main roster. He's just excelled and done that well in such a short amount of time. And there's so many ideas as far as angles and stories that we could do to bring him in and tag with his dad, wrestle his dad. There's so much creativity that's there. So I know once we get to that point, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff that he'll be able to do. But I know little Mark, I know he'll be able to excel here at H2O. And I tell all the students, especially the ones that have at least are, they're all really good, and they've excelled so much and so fast. Like I said, the goal is, I want these kids to get signed, and I want them to have full-time careers and make money in this business. Because at the end of the day, like, we're doing it because we love to do it, but it's a business and we got to make money to survive. I want these guys to go out and get signed and get contracts. And, even on the independent level, and not to blow smoke up my ass or use myself as an example, you can make a living on the independent level, living within my means. And, I'm very old, so I ain't got no mansion or nothing. But at the end of the day, I'm able to take care of my family and pay my bills, and I just have to wake up and wrestle and run my wrestling company every day. So I'm thankful for that, and it takes hard work. So, and little Mark has put that hard work in, and I know he will continue to do so. Once we get back after all this Corona BS is over.
Yeah.
Josh Wright wanted to he wanted to drop in. He just says he can't wait to come down to Williamstown for H2O. He misses you, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Josh.
And we did have a couple of questions, a couple people with the question, just kind of in terms of WWE, AEW. What are your thoughts? And you could be brief with it, but kind of what are your thoughts of the current day mainstream product outside of the independents?
Yeah. I watch it all because I want to stay up to date with what's going on. So I will catch AEW as often as I can, WWE as often as I can. Obviously now with a lot more downtime, I've been able to watch a lot more stuff live, opposed to before the pandemic started. Usually the next day is after Raw would air. That's when I would go on the WWE YouTube and watch the clips just to catch up and see what's going on, who's relevant, what, and so on and so forth. Man, I would say overall, as far as the product right now, it really hurts not having a crowd in the audience, and the empty arena stuff. Just at least for me, man, it's tough to watch. The first week, once the pandemic started, H2O, we did our own empty arena thing. We just filmed 4 matches, and then we shot a round table, and we put that on a DVD to put out. And after that, I'm like, I'm done with the empty arena stuff. I'd rather not do anything. It doesn't do anything for me aesthetically, and in the ear and by the eye. I mean, pro wrestling needs an audience, and I watched WrestleMania, and while I was entertained and I enjoyed it, all those moments that happened obviously would have been so much more and so much more memorable in front of a live audience. And it definitely took away from the viewing experience, and short term and long term. And obviously I know everyone's doing what they can do, and they need to put out content. They got contracts to all these TV companies, so they got to put out content. But overall, I haven't watched as much lately. Again, I'll just go check out a clip or two, but watching an entire 2 or 3 hour broadcast of nothing but empty arena matches is very tough. Back in the day, it was special when Funk and Lawler did it in Memphis, and I'm like, I love that empty arena match. But
even more recently, you can go back to when Mick Foley and The Rock did it during halftime at the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It was a special event. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And it is very, very weird now. I appreciate the effort on both sides. I even with AEW, who's trying to put some of their superstars out in the crowd, I don't even enjoy that because it's phony, because it's very hokey to me. And I appreciate that they're trying to give a different experience than a totally empty arena. Either side, I think you can't win. Yeah, so I agree with you on that. It's a different experience.
And it's tough too because, especially if you're just getting into the business, obviously with you training, young men and women to get into the business, it's tough to know what's working and what's not working when you don't have an audience. When you don't have when you're doing a match and you do this spot, but you have no audience. So it's I don't know if that was good or if that was bad because we don't know what the reaction was. It would suck for development wise because that's the best way you can find out what's working and what's not working.
110%. A lot of times when I'm booking, or I say I've booked a match or a segment on an H2O show, I'm very organic. I might book things 2-3 months out in advance. And all right, this is chapter 1 of that angle. And I'm in the corner of the building over here watching a segment go on. If I'm waiting for the crowd reactions. I'm waiting to see how that segment's going to come off or how these guys are going to work, what they're popping, what they're not popping at. So yeah, the crowd and the investment, the emotional investment from the crowd is everything that we do. We're trying to tell stories in front of nobody now. But I mean, like you said, everybody's still putting in the work and the effort, and guys are still going in there. You know, I really respected what they're doing, especially on Mania, when guys are doing a ladder match in front of no live people, knowing, you know, millions of people are watching on the network, but guys are still going in there taking bumps, taking ladder bumps on top of that. But yeah, it's a whole different ball game, and I can't wait until there's fans back around a goddamn wrestling ring.
Yeah. So one more question from the chat, and then there's like another 1 or 2 questions before we wrap up. But Matt also wanted to know, you know, you did the Viceland show. I think what he meant was the wrestlers, where you were on the episode about deathmatch. What was that experience like in terms of being a part of that episode, that documentary? To me, it was more of like a mini series than necessarily an episodic show. But in terms of being a part of that series, and also in terms of Dark Side of the Ring, you know, Vice is doing a lot of really good stuff. So he wanted to know what your opinion is on, you know, kind of the stuff that they're presenting.
Damien, who works at Vice, he's been the guy that I've met that is the main producer behind the scenes for the wrestlers series that they did. And I was on Vice Mexico as well. When I was in Mexico a couple years ago, they were doing a piece on DTU, which is the main deathmatch promotion in Mexico. So, and it's all in Spanish, so I have no idea what they're saying. But I'm on that one too. But yeah, Damien, I can't remember anybody else but Damien was the main one that I met and seemed like the guy in charge that was producing, you know, all this content that they were filming. And yeah, they were pleasant to be around. They filmed stuff even back as far back as the first H2O show in 2016 when I had Kevin Sullivan in. They were in town when they did the Tournament of Death Vice documentary, and they were at H2O the night before filming me and Kevin Sullivan's match. Never seen any of that footage to the light of day. God knows.
Nope, we can't hear your mic again. Ooh, there you go. Yeah.
I think I'm hitting on there something. But overall fun, good experience with Vice. The Dark Side of the Ring is probably my favorite thing to watch. It's like, you know, kind of like when I was a kid and I was waiting for, you know, Monday Night Raw to come on and I was excited. I kind of get that same feeling with these Dark Side of the Rings.
I do too.
The New Jack one was awesome. You know, one, because I had a couple clips in it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I've worked with New Jack a bunch of times. He's the best. As long as you go in the ring and do business the right way, you don't have to get stabbed. So just go in the ring and do good business, and Jack will take care of you. And if not, then you got to see the real New Jack, and that's when you get stabbed. So that's on them dudes. But Dark Side of the Ring overall is great. I love the Dr. D. David Schultz one. I think was the best one so far from this season. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chrome, did you tell Tremont any time about meeting New Jack and then being scared for your life because of the picture that it took?
No, but it was definitely one of the most intimidating experiences. He was very nice.
Yeah.
I just think it's the legend of New Jack. And
for sure.
Ironically enough, the picture that I took with him too, there's like a shadow halfway across his face, and I'm like, it just kind of encompasses the experience of how scared I was.
Awesome.
But now, you know, I kind of want to bring it back to H2O here because obviously, you know, that's independent wrestling is kind of in a really weird place right now because we don't know what it's going to be like coming out of this.
Yeah.
And, you know, you said it yourself. WWE is finding different ways. You know, how do you see independent wrestling, your own organization kind of coming out of this? is it going to be kind of a slow build to kind of get back where you guys were? And also, you kind of touched on pro wrestling tees and stuff, but what are some other ways now that we can help to support organizations like yourself and some other indies, kind of during this time where you guys don't have the typical income that you would have right now?
Yeah. I'll try to touch on everything the best I can. If I forget, refresh the memory. As I tell the wife many times, I've gotten hit in the head a lot over the years. Usually I just use it as an excuse half the time. First, I wanted to say that I've mentioned to quite a few people in this last month and a half that this pandemic is going on. Obviously, it sucks and it's unfortunate for many people for many various different reasons. As far as the wrestling business, to look at it from a positive landscape, I've looked at it at least somewhat as a blessing in disguise, because pro wrestling never gets an off season like the NBA and the Major League Baseball and everything else. So now, for the first time in maybe ever, pro wrestling is in an off season right now for a month, 2 months, 3 months. So, and it's kind of like when you go to the territory and you leave the territory to come back 6 months from now, it's because you want the fans to miss you. And and when you come back, business is going to be bigger, better, and better than ever. So I'm hoping in this downtime that we're down, it's a blessing, because sometimes you need a break from stuff to find that passion again for it, to find the fire inside you to go to shows and spend money, and for the wrestlers as well. A lot of guys are resting up, and because there's the mental and physical toll the business has on you, it takes its toll. So a lot of guys are able to chill right now. So hopefully, like, as far as a blessing in disguise, fans are just chomping at the bit to come back to shows and go to a live event and spend money and just enjoy themselves and have a good time. And then as far as the boys, they're resting, and when they come back, guys are feeling a lot better, and they're going to be able to go hard when we're able to come back and go live. And I mean, overall, it's the pandemic hit us hard, being an independent company. And I tell our fans a lot of the times, usually before every show, I just like to talk to the fans. And, I call H2O the mom and pop corner store, on the block, and we really are. We don't have big vendors involved and financial backers or anybody, giving me money to keep the company going. It's become the slogan, because I say it before every show. This company strives, thrives, and survives, off the financial investment and emotional investment from, this, small, diverse, hardcore fan base that we have. It's what literally keeps us going and keeps the lights on. And, March 14th was our last live event when the pandemic just started, and it was Hardcore Kingdom, one of our premier events of our calendar live event year. And while we still did good because the pandemic first started, that event definitely took a hit as far as attendance, as far as gate, what we were going to draw, money and stuff. I was thankful we were able to get that show in, because if not, things would have been a lot tougher, than they are right now. But in a month's time, at least for H2O, in 1 month's time, we'll run anywhere from 2 to 3 Monday night student shows. We'll run anywhere from 1 to 2 H2O live events. And then I have at least 2 to 3 other promotions running out of this building every month or every other month. So all those live events, we had to cancel so many shows between when this started up until this point now, as far as the live events. And, in that span of that 3 hours of those live events, we have 3 avenues to make money in that time: at the door, at merch, and at the concessions. And, none of that income's been coming in. So and then to the point of, pro wrestling tees. And during this time, I've been thankful that, because I haven't been able to wrestle myself or run any shows. Our only avenues of revenue coming in at this time is, people that purchase a t-shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees. The entire H2O library and catalog of all our events are available on DVD and digital download at Smart Mark Video. And right before, probably very early March, is when we just launched on IWTV, independentwrestling.tv, and where you can stream hundreds of wrestling promotions and hundreds of hours of wrestling for $9.99 a month. And we have 14 events streaming right now on IWTV. And the more you watch H2O, it's the breakdown of it, we get X amount of, per cents, per dollar, per hour, or, per minute. So I've been thankful, those three avenues have been our only source of revenue and income coming in, this last, month and a half, almost 2 months that this has been going on. And I'll usually see that money the first of every month. So I got money back on April 1st. And then this month has been, thankful, to the people, we've had people donate, and, even as far as like just groceries and stuff, and donate money to the company. Synergy Wrestling did a promo battle fundraiser for us. So just like to everyone that has come out and helped the company overall in this time that we're down, has meant a lot to myself and my wife, because our livelihood is me and wrestling and running H2O. So, this month alone, I'll get the breakdown from Pro Wrestling Tees, and this month we've sold the most t-shirts we've ever sold. The views on IWTV are up, and we've done good on sales on Smart Mark Video. So for the fans to still support us while we're down, even more than they already do, because our fans are the best, and like I said, we should strive, thrive, and survive because of them. For them to keep supporting us during this downtime, knowing that every penny and every dollar that comes in is to keep these lights on behind me and pay bills and feed the dog and put gas in the car. It's been that have helped out, and I think if I could rewind it so it all makes sense, and to tie in the little Mark, when I'm teaching these kids not only to be good wrestlers but be good people, everything that I have in the wrestling business and in life is because everyone has been so supportive of me, and that just goes back to just being a good fucking human being. And aside from accomplishments and accolades and trips to Japan or whatever, to me, at the end of the day, none of that means anything. The biggest thing I have in life and in the business is the respect and the rapport that I have with my peers in the business and these fans. And these fans are family, and I tell them that every month. So like during this crazy, horrible time that we're all going through right now, for everybody that has supported us, man, I can't thank y'all enough.
Yeah, I can vouch for that too, Matt. You run a very personal company in terms of, like I said, I've interacted with you a bunch of times, and you've always been very welcoming, very kind, and it's been a great experience. And I would encourage everybody, whether you're local to us here, companies like H2O with great people running it like Matt, or even your local company where you live, whether you live in California, Arkansas, whatever it is, if you're a wrestling fan, support them, because this is the genesis of where, even if you are like a WWE and AEW person, this is the genesis of where a lot of these people start out at, and really kind of build that quote unquote stock to get those opportunities. So, I know that I appreciate everything that you do, and a lot of people do. A lot of people were really excited that we were able to have you on. So, Maddie, did you have any questions for Matt before we let this gentleman go?
One last question. So you're in the finals of another deathmatch tournament. It's all in one day, so that way you're good. You don't have to worry about the 2-day thing. The finals are here. who do you want to be standing on the other side of the ring? Like, who is that dream death match with? I know you got Oneta, so obviously he's off the table. Who would it be now?
Number one, I mean, there's two, and they won't happen, and it's Foley and Terry Funk, 110%. Those would be the dream guys to stand across from and go to battle with.
Nice.
I'll tell you,
nice.
man. I thought before AEW went going that you were going to get that Cody Rhodes match too, man.
I'm hoping. You never know in the wrestling business. Right when, again, and I went the same route. I went with Onita. I just started calling Cody Rhodes out. I'm like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I made it happen with Onita. Who knows? And like I did meet Cody. We talked, exchanged a Twitter DM or two or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely still a goal. And not even AEW. I just wanted to work him, just because I was such a big fan of his dad, and
Yeah.
I'm a very old school fan at heart and wrestler. And his dad, he was a big influence on me as well. But just to have like an old school Texas Bull Rope match with him would be, very cool. But in the immediate future, that would be fun. That would be a goal. I like the NWA product a lot as well. I would like to do that. If I were the one thing I haven't done is do something on national television, and that either NWA or MLW or Impact or something like that. That's one big goal I still have that I would like to do.
Yeah.
So Matt, where can we find you on social media? Whether it's you, whether it's H2O, plug it all. Let's hear it all.
I'm online every day plugging something away. But yeah, all my social media now it's either Tremont CZW or Tremont H2O, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email Tremont2k11@gmail.com. And if you need to get a hold, H2O Wrestling, we're on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And like I said, the best way to support H2O right now, if you want to purchase a DVD or digital download, smartmarkvideo.com. Watch H2O and subscribe to the IWTV network, $9.99 a month. If you sign up for the first time, use the promo code HUSTLE. You get a 5-day free trial. You'll like what you're going to see. Sign up, and then we get a kickback off all that stuff. And watch H2O amongst CZW's on there, GCW, IWA Mid South, AIW, all the top independent promotions are on IWTV. It's a great deal for $9.99, and then of course Pro Wrestling Tees. So yeah, man, that's how you can support us. That's how you can find us, and I greatly appreciate it. Appreciate the platform you guys having me on, and I appreciate all the fans out there continuing to support myself and H2O. And I hope sooner than later this thing ends, and I can get up from this desk and go inside the ring and go and wrestle.
Yes. I know we're looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'll be at the first show you guys friggin' run. I can't wait for you to get going. But yeah, dude, listen, we appreciate your time. You're welcome back anytime you want to come on, promote one of your shows, do whatever. You were a great guest and a great friend, and I appreciate it. I know Maddie appreciates it, and our audience does as well. So, Matt, thanks again, brother. You, your family, your wife, the dog, everybody, stay safe, and we'll get through this together, brother. And we'll be back in Williamstown soon.
Hell yeah, man! Thank you guys both, man. Take care.
You too.
Take care, Matt.
Thank you.
Later. Peace.
All right. That was the legendary King of the Death match right there on Matt Tremont.
Definitely shout out to Matt too. He gave us way more time than we expected we were going to get, but that was really insightful, and I'm glad that we took the time because I know I wanted to make sure that we took a lot of time to talk to him about H2O. Because locally for us, H2O is very important to the independent scene, and B, it kind of gets the awareness out there in general around the country of the status of where independent wrestling is at. I mean, we're so fixated all the time on WWE and AEW that, you know, there's a place where a lot of these guys, you know, I love Cody Rhodes. I don't mean this to knock him or Charlotte or any of these people, but not everybody had a foot in the door, and a lot of people, you know, what's his Swerve Scott, Isaiah Swerve Scott.
Yeah.
He was Shane Strickland on the Indies.
Yeah.
He worked.
That's true.
He worked death matches. He worked everything else. They all start somewhere.
Yeah.
And
I remember watching Shane face off with Matt Riddle at the CW arena, which is 2300 arena now. But you know, he and Matt Riddle had an amazing match for the what was it, the Evolve Championship.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You know, like this is. Besides just the local platforms, just anywhere that you have independent wrestling, you know, like it's just, this is, like I said before, this is where everybody develops, you know, this is where they need to be in order for them to either train or for them to learn or for them just to get different worlds. Like, you know, every crowd's different, you know, like, I mean, you know, you could talk about when we interviewed Sid, he talked about how the Northeast fans were his favorite because they cheered him a lot, you know. Well, the Northeast fans are different from the Southern fans, you know, and different from the Midwest fans or the West Coast fans, you know, Japanese fans, you know. Everyone's got different tastes, and the only way you learn that is to go to these different promotions and get a taste of it, you know, and understand, okay, this is what these kind of crowds like, this is what this kind of crowd like. That's how you learn. It's how you become a top wrestler in the industry. You learn from that.
yeah, and you know, the independent scene is so important. And again, I thought that this would be a really great time. We've talked to Matt. I've been talking to Matt a lot, and I've talked to you about it, about coming on before. And you know, we almost had him on a couple of times, or we had talked about it, me and him, just never really set a time. And I just kind of felt like with the state of the world and where we're at, and in terms of our wrestling world, there was no better time to have Matt on than right now, because he is an icon in the independent scene, in the deathmatch scene. He runs his own organization, and I knew that he could kind of be such like the most ideal representation of, you know, kind of the landscape that we're at now. So I really appreciate him coming on. I know you do, and that was a great interview.
Absolutely.
He gave us a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of funny stuff. The New Jack comment cracked me up. That may be the clip of the week. It may be the clip of the week.
I think it should be, honestly, because it's just perfect right off the back of his Dark Side of the Ring episode where he literally almost stabbed a guy to death. But anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate some of the people that popped in the chat too. Some are H2O guys, and our old buddy Nick Papagiorgio, who was our first interview on this platform of A2D Radio for Lazy Booking. The very first wrestler interview who we talked in detail about, because he feuded with Matt quite a bit, which was Mark Angel, who, again, Mark already said in the chat he'd be happy to join us. So we'll have Mark on sometime to do this as well. But, you know, it was really cool that a lot of people did pop in the chat and wanted to be a part of, you know, talking to Matt and listen to what he had to say and, you know, the indie stuff. So we appreciate it immensely. I think we're going to probably, you know, real quick before we do, there's only one thing that I want to talk about from this week, I'll be honest. But before we get to that,
okay,
is there anything quickly that you want to, you know, I took away a lot of like where the independent scene is at. Also, you know, the art of the death match, a lot of what he said. You know, a lot of people have this vision of what the death match is, but there is an art to it. And I also think that a lot of people think that these guys who participate in that, there's a lot of stereotypes and making assumptions about him. And clearly when you talk to Matt is an extremely smart guy who has, you know, he's a deathmatch guy. But when you hear him talk about training his students and doing it the right way, teaching them the proper fundamentals, teaching them the right attitude to make sure that they can go, if it's deathmatch, if it's WWE, if it's AEW, if it's CZW, if it's NWA, or, you know, anything in between independent wise, that they have the right attitude, the proper training, and the ability, the right tools to go and pursue whatever. And not everybody would assume that a deathmatch guy would have that mentality. And clearly Matt is cut from a different cloth. So that's kind of that's the main thing I took from that. But I want to know, where you are. I had to figure out again where you were at. I want to know what you took from that interview.
I took from that interview. You're definitely right. That's definitely something you can take away from that. I also took away from just you love it when you have people who are in the business who give back. Because there's a lot of and don't have egos. And that's the beautiful thing. Because there's people who get in the business, and even if they only make it to a certain level where they're an independent wrestling star, they're big enough to where the smart fans are going to know who they are, and they can recognize them on the street. But the thing is that some people get an ego, and it's just like then they big time people, then they think they're bigger than the business, or they're bigger than a show, or they're bigger than this, that, and the other thing, and that always that doesn't sit well with me, because it's just like you wouldn't be in that position if people didn't like you and if people didn't connect with you and didn't appreciate what you did in the ring in the first place. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, why are you doing this then? Like, why would you get in a business where you have fans who want to, talk to you, even if it's just for a quick moment when you're doing an autograph session, like for a couple of minutes of your day, just like, yeah, this is what this was like, and then you sign their autograph, you shake their hand, take a photo with them, and then that's the end of it. It's just like, how hard can that possibly be, and some people, it seems like it's such a big deal. I always love meeting people who, they're great, they're awesome people, they can talk to you for hours about what they do, and they don't have an ego. And the best and the perfect example of that was he sold his deathmatch trophies to continue running his business for other people to train at and everything. That's unbelievable. Like, and there's people that we could probably name off the top of our heads who would never even conceivably do that, but he did, for the promotion's sake and for the sake of, for his students and such like that. It's like, that's amazing. I love hearing that, I love that when you meet people like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who want to hang on to those accolades, and they're well earned. It's their right to do that. But to hear somebody who has a vision, and listen, it's for his future too. Life after
obviously,
in ring. But someone who has a vision for the future of the business, it was really inspiring and encouraging. It was an awesome interview. I'm very, very happy that he took the time to speak with us. I know you are as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So again, check Matt out on his social media, at Tremont CZW or at Tremont H2O. You can check out Hardcore Hustle Organization. You can look them up. They have both a business page and a Facebook group. Matt has his own he has his personal profile, and then the Bulldozer profile that you could check out. Check them out, follow them, hit Pro Wrestling Tees. If you guys check out the indie stuff, it's really good. That site that he's talking about. Just definitely do what you can, guys. Support your local pro wrestling, independent pro wrestling. Any chance of getting Pennsylvania man, the franchise, Shane Douglas? We'll see, brother. We're working on a couple things, or lady. I'm not sure who Prism 280 is, but we're working on a few more guests in the future. We've had some in the past. And again, if you're new to the show and it's your first time checking it out, hey, thank you so much for checking us out. B, you can definitely go back and check out our archives either on Facebook or you can check out our YouTube page. All of the shows are on there. You can check out our Tito Santana interview. We did an interview with Psycho Sid, Nikita Koloff, Nick Papagiorgio. Who's the head, the senior referee for both H2O Wrestling, CZW Wrestling. He's been in a lot of those death matches as the official. And obviously, we're all over the place. Generally we broadcast in a lot more places. Right now we're running on Periscope, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We usually do like Instagram and all kinds of stuff. You can still check out our podcast forms too. And go back and check out our archives of this show on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, whatever you call it. We're all over the place. But stay tuned. we've reached out to a few people. You know, we don't do interviews every week, but we try to bring them in when we can. And there's a couple possibilities coming up that would be really very exciting over
Yeah.
the next 2 or 3 months if we can land them.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always fun when we do these interview shows. I mean, we've interviewed a few people so far, and it's always exciting when we do that.
Question.
Yes.
Before we go off the air, and if Frank's welcome to pop on for this one if he wants to too. I'll be honest, I didn't love the programming overall on either program, WWE, NXT, AEW. But it's hard to not acknowledge the brilliance of the Bubbly Bunch.
Manitoba
Bubbly Bunch.
Melee.
Yes, the Manitoba Melee, Mr. Frank Vespi. Amazing. I mean, Jericho is money right now. He's great on the commentary, the Schiavone stuff, constantly calling Shivani Schiavone. I love. Oh, and you know what? Also going to shout out to Britt Baker because the role model promo is spot on. And Maddie, we were very hard because it felt very forced the first 2-3 weeks of this heel turn, right?
Yes.
Very odd.
Yes.
But man, did she turn the dial? She turned a corner, brother, and she is on fire right now. That with Rebel was kept calling her Reba, which was very kind of Jericho-esque. But that was amazing. Between that and the Bubbly Bunch, they have to be highlighted to me as this week's winners in content of the major promotions. What do you think?
I can't really argue that. I mean, it's not really, there, like you said, there wasn't many highlights to pull out of, but I think you didn't hit the nail on the head in terms of them, honestly, because I mean, I know it's rough because they have no audience and everything, but it's just like, some of the stuff they do is just like makes you scratch your head, just like, why? Like, why do that?
I mean, I get it. I appreciate it. I'm not complaining. But
yeah.
It is.
I mean,
I can even admit it's very difficult watching the same 9 wrestlers wrestle week in and week out, the same thing over and over, and particularly when you're just not invested in a couple of them. Like for NXT, Damian Priest, I don't care about him. Sorry, I don't get it. When I look at AEW, Lance Archer, Vance, I don't get it. Doesn't do it for me. But
I mean,
I can't. I'm not knocking them for trying. I still watch. It gives me something, enough something to talk about. But I have to tip the cap to AEW this week strictly because those two segments alone were absolute gold. And if you haven't checked them out, go on YouTube and check them out. They're worth it.
And I believe this is the first time you've ever really tipped the cap over WWE in terms of week in, week out, comparing the two. I think it is, to be honest.
Not over WWE. Not over WWE. I would say usually I find WWE or NXT better.
Usually.
But good stuff. And I mean, the Bubbly Bunch was so good. You had Lou Ferrigno. You had Jay and Silent Bob. You had Vicky Guerrero. Did you notice who kicked Vicky Guerrero? That
No.
was the jet ski guy from Tiger King's documentary.
Oh my god.
The real scumbag that they featured a lot in the last couple episodes with all the ladies. That was jet ski guy. They had Fluffy. They had all kinds of people. It was it was a really fun segment. So, Maddie, anything else for the greater good before we hop off?
No, I just obviously, like we said before, support the independent wrestling promotions like H2O and the rest, and watch Dark Side of the Ring because it is exciting, and every single week it keeps getting better.
Yeah. Support your local indies, and hey, guys, support your local sports talk. Support your very own fam here at A2D Radio, guys. Slap party.
No, I did not see that.
View them in a whole new light. I have not seen that, but what I will tell you, Prism, I was a big Omega guy before AEW. I think that Omega is, for me personally, think he's overexposed. I think he's just like everybody else now, where we're seeing the same 5 or 6 move sets. Thing is, John Cena got knocked for years for doing the same 5 or 6 moves, right? But if you really watch wrestling, they all of them, even the best, do the same 5 or 6 moves over and over.
Well,
It's their thing. It's getting their spots in.
It's called signature moves, and
Right.
it's what you expect from them. It's like you always expected him to climb the top rope and do the old school. So it's
Yeah.
like it's one of those things. But I will say this: I think actually my theory is I think Kenny's getting a little lazy. I think that's what it is. I wasn't sure about it, and I wasn't going to immediately say it, but I'm thinking like, because I see him, because exactly like he's got to worry about coming back through that curtain and someone looking at me like, that was shit, man. What the hell?
Well, beyond, for me, it's not even that, man. I mean, a little bit of that. I don't disagree with you, but I thought that this company was going to be something different than what they've presented. There's a couple stars that they're building, but it's been a lot of, and I told you this was going to be my fear going into it. It's been the boys club.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like now that if you're friends with Kenny Omega, you got a job at AEW with the Michael Nakazawas, who stinks. He stinks. He's a bum.
He's a comedy wrestler.
He didn't even wrestle with him in NJPW. He wrestled with him in DDT, which is basically a gimmicky joke wrestling organization. It doesn't translate to here.
No,
it doesn't translate to here,
and
I can't stand it.
Here's the thing. I've said this before. It's like expectations are different when you're watching this product than when you're watching another product. So like when you're watching AEW, it's on TNT. So you're thinking like, okay, they're not going to waste airtime, primetime airtime on a Wednesday night on wrestling with a guy who lathers himself up in baby oil, or anything like that. But when you're watching something like Chikara or DDT, it's like, okay, it's a comedy promotion. So expectations are different there. It's like, yes, I'm expecting to see silly shit like this. It's different with AEW. You're not expecting that, and you shouldn't expect people to just go, oh, wow, that's amazing, because that's stupid. I'm a fan of all kinds of wrestling, but it has to make sense, and it doesn't make sense. That's all I'm asking. Just have it make sense. Do whatever you want. Have it make sense.
Yeah. I guess that's it for us, Matty. Good stuff. Again, thank you to our guest, the Bulldozer, Matt Tremont, who this was the first time he ever did a video interview.
Nice.
I feel honored.
I do. That was awesome. That was a great interview.
In terms of one of these kind of interviews, it's the first time he's ever done a video interview. That's awesome.
That's cool.
But I appreciate Matt joining us again. But to round it back, don't just support your local pro wrestling, support us. We also have some, and I say that because we have some really awesome shirts and stuff, some new merch that just dropped. So if you're a Lazy Booking fan or a Sports Hounds fan or a Hockey Happy Hour fan or a Birds of a Feather fan or AM and the PM or Agree to Disagree or The Rundown or the Weekly Roundup. What other shows am I missing here, Matty?
In This Very Ring.
In This Very Ring.
Super
Kicking
Astros.
It Stateside. The Fix. There it is, Ryan. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting the third thing. I couldn't remember what one I didn't mention.
Oh, that's great.
Well, damn you guys for combining your shows and screwing me up now.
But
I'm a fan of The Fix. I'm going to get a Fix t-shirt. But listen, you can get, there's really cool station designs that are on there, and A2D just dropped show designs down with all of our show logos. So I know we would appreciate it if you guys wanted to, rock any A2D merch. Check it out at phillydrinkers.com. And obviously, we ran through the platforms that we're on as far as checking us out. Check out all our shows, guys, because literally this is the place where you have a voice, where your comments get popped up, where whether it's us talking amongst ourselves or talking with our guests, we will make sure that that you have a presence in the conversation. And only A2D offers that to you guys. So, Make sure you guys stay tuned. Hockey Happy Hour coming at you at the 10 o'clock hour. I have no idea what time it is. Oh, it's only 8:35. That's not bad. They're going to be coming at you at the 10 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
And what are you guys talking about tonight?
We are going to dive into the greatest hockey movies of all time. So, nice conversation piece for everybody there. So, hopefully somebody did their homework and watched a few hockey movies. I kind of did. I half-assed it. I'm not gonna lie. But I have plenty of hockey movies that I remember that I have put into the list. So, but still, it's gonna be fun.
That's awesome. So, yeah, check these guys out. They're going to be coming at you very, very soon. For me, I'm done for the week. It's nice to be done. Everybody, please stay home, stay safe. Things are going to be opening up soon. And listen, parks and golf courses are going to be opening up this weekend. If they do and you partake, please still social distance, be smart. Let's bend the curve so we can get back to normal, so we can be back in crowds at Phillies games and at H2O Wrestling and WWE events and AEW events. And I don't know if we're going to get crowds for hockey this season, but next season,
I don't even know if we're going to get the playoffs at this point. So,
I don't know, man. It looked like they turned a lot of corners. Looked like they were talking about it.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm just, you just don't know right now,
It seems like a lot of stuff is now putting plans into place, and I feel like there's a good chance that you might get hockey. No fans, but I'll take it at this point. But for Maddie, for myself, for Mr. Tremont, who joined us today, for Mr. Vespi and Mr. Brodo on the back end, we appreciate you guys for producing such a great show, as always. And until next week, thank you to our sponsors, our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at specializedphysicaltherapy.com, Ambuck Services. You can check them out for any of your gutter guards, installation, restoration of any kind of, decks and gutters and cleaning and this and that. Check them out, ambuckservices.com. Let them know that Tom and the H2D family sent you. You get 20% off. And obviously our QB54 family, best tailgate game in the business. Check them out. PlayQB54.com. Use the promo code No Notes. You get 10% off. For Maddie, for Chrome, for the rest of the family here at A2D, we love you guys. Have a good week, all right?